Hi, it's Bumble. Welcome back to my channel. So I actually just finished this movie. It was really good and kind of scary. Not the kind of scare like with horror movies, it's kind of like a new thing for me to be getting into in terms of genres. It's like I've mentioned before, I like psychological horrors and not the kind where it gets like too supernatural and spooky, or things with a lot of jump scares are the kind of things that keep me awake at night. So this was more my speed. I haven't really watched a ton of like movies based on Stephen King books. Like I watched the original one, like the TV series, and the new one. The new one was kind of scary. I didn't end up finishing it. But the old one was just kind of fun in a way. It kind of just reminds me of like the Goonies, but spooky. I've seen The Shining. I know that's like one of his most one of the most like famous of the movies, based on his books and stuff. I haven't read any of the books, by the way. But The Shining was good. This kind of reminded me of The Shining. I think The Shining was made first, so I'm pretty sure that's from the 80s. This movie, Misery, it's from 1990. It kind of gave me a similar vibe. Because like with that one, it's kind of like a slow, they're both sort of slow, but with The Shining it's more of a slow build of like the main character eventually descending into madness and stuff, but then there's more like supernatural elements of things going on. And then with this one, it feels more isolating about these two characters. It just mostly takes place in this house in this like small town. I sound a little sleepy. I'm recording this at 11 p.m. I almost wasn't gonna do this, but I thought, no, the movie's good. There was a couple scenes I want to talk about. It's about this famous author. His name's Paul. I don't remember what the actor that played him is named. I thought his character was okay, because the only person I recognized and the reason I watched it was for Kathy Bates. I had known about this movie just because I'd seen like in videos and stuff where there's like images of her where it's like in the movie and she's like holding up the knife or whatever. So I always wondered what this movie exactly was. But I thought she did a great job. I wouldn't be surprised if she got like an award for this movie. I haven't like fact checked that or anything. Maybe she did, maybe she didn't. I thought she did a great job. She seemed like genuinely kind of scary and playing the type of character that like 1 minute is like really nice and the next is like really suspenseful. Anyway, it's about this author. His name's Paul. The books he writes are about this character named Misery. The front of them look like your standard kind of like paperback romance novels or stuff, kind of like a little cheesy, because we see like the front of it, we hear about the plots a little, and he decides or has already figured out at the beginning of the movie, he's already wrote it, but he hasn't like gotten it published. He only has like one copy of it, of his latest book where he kills off the main character because he doesn't want to write about her anymore, and he's like talking to his publisher about it, and then he ends up getting into this car accident and he's rescued by Kathy Bates' character, who is like his like number one fan and stuff, and she ends up nursing, and the whole plot is basically she's like nursing him back to health, and he's trying to figure out how to escape because she gets like real upset once she figures out or she eventually reads a script that the main character gets killed off, and then her behavior gets like more and more erratic, and then the B plot of the movie is there's this like local sheriff or something who's this old guy, and he spends the whole movie, and we check up on him every once in a while, trying to figure out why this guy disappeared and what happened and stuff. And it does end up kind of being a bummer, but like also kind of what you expect where he's going through all these clues. He even spends the time reading all of these books this guy had written, trying to like find a clue, and he does end up finding an important clue that leads to the house where he's being imprisoned at, and then he ends up finding the guy and gets shot. It's one of those things where like he could have lived if he didn't like go back in the house, but he heard something, and it's like it's kind of the main character's fault, the author's, for this guy getting killed. It's very like abrupt too. He gets shot in the back with the shotgun. This movie is definitely a bit violent, not super gory. I mean, it gets a little gory at the end where there's like blood and stuff. The blood doesn't really look real. The freaking thing that got me, and part of the reason I want to talk about this, is there's a scene, I don't know if it's like a real technique, where it's called like hobbling or something, where Kathy Bates' character, her name is Annie, I just remembered about that, her name is Annie. Yeah, Annie figures out that Paul has been leaving his room. He's not supposed to do that, because the whole movie his like legs are messed up and they're healing, and to make sure that he isn't able to leave again, she has him on this bed, like in this little guest room the entire movie, because she's also a nurse, so she's been like doing stuff and trying to heal him. It has like all these pills and whatever, where she puts this wooden block between his feet and then grabs like this hammer. I thought it was going to be like an axe or something at first. I feel like she's the kind of character that would have an axe, but no, and that's also more associated with The Shining. No, she has a gun in this one, but no, she has this giant hammer thing, and it's one of the most painful looking things I've ever seen in a movie. Like, I literally like the thing happened and I looked away from the screen, and I immediately fast forward, and I was like, I do not want to see that happen the other leg, where there's like a wooden block between his feet, and she picks up a hammer and she hits him in the foot, and the wood's there to like keep his legs in place or whatever, not that he could probably move them well anyway. And if you look, his foot, when she hits him the first time, just flops over and looks so messed up. Like, there's no like blood or anything or whatever. You don't hear like a bone cracking sound, but you can just picture it when you see it, that hammer hitting his like directly into his foot too. Just, it made me so freaking squeamish. Other than that, I mean, there's other weapons. There's like shooting a bit. He tries to kill her with a knife at one point, and she ends up taking the knife, and then from then on she ends up drugging him. And those scenes are kind of weird to watch too. There's the parts where she was the most scariest, were either when Annie would get angry about things related to the book she's forcing Paul to write, where she suddenly goes into like a fit of rage, and it's weird where it's like she's yelling and she's upset, but it doesn't feel to the point, like she talks kind of very gently, not like super soft spoken. No one really talks that loud in this movie, actually. It's kind of nice, but she talks like very gently. And then even when she's yelling and she's like screaming in his face, it doesn't feel that bad, actually. I think it kind of makes her a little more scary. But she'll suddenly go into these fits of rage like very easily about this. She's like very protective of the main character of this, the book that Paul's writing. But there's also parts where it'll be like nighttime, and suddenly she's just there in his room, and she'll like put a syringe with like a needle into him to like make him all wobbly or whatever. Not enough to like knock him out, but just where he can't really move or do anything, to like stun him. Or sometimes she'll just show up and she'll do stuff, and it always feels weird. I think the reason this movie feels so scary to me, besides Kathy Bates' acting, especially because she'll, in those scenes where she's like trying to stun him or whatever, being kind of spooky, she talks in this kind of lower, not monotone, but like calmer, like emotionless ish voice. I know those kind of mean the same thing, like emotionless and monotone. But she has this way of staring at him that just looks kind of creepy. I don't know. I feel like with horror movies sometimes, or with horror things, you know, someone will be kind of scary and they're like, their eyes will go wide, or they'll have a big like smile or whatever. Something will look off, but it's almost kind of refreshing to see it where someone's staring at you and the way they're talking and the look in their eyes, they kind of look a little dead, if that makes sense. Which sort of fits with the character too. She's like very depressed, and I don't know what condition she has, but she's kind of just all over the place. But sometimes she's like very depressed, and other times she gets like angry immediately, but then the next day she'll be like happy as a clam. I don't know. But anyway, what makes this movie kind of scary and is still kind of sticky in my mind is that it'll show Paul's point of view, and Kathy Bates will be like right in front of the camera, where it feels like she's like right in front of you, you know, when she's talking to him, especially when she gets kind of scary, or like suddenly she'll just like the camera will be on Paul, and then suddenly it's like the next shot and it's just her in front of him, and it just, I don't know, it just makes her more intense. Like it feels like, oh, this is happening to me now. That's how a lot of the scenes with her are actually. So it just makes it so much more scary. What else? And then it gets kind of crazy at the end, where Paul, throughout the entire movie, he's trying to find different ways to escape, but also how to like injure her and stuff. Like there's one part where they're having this candlelit dinner, and he tries to put these like pills, the pills she's been like drugging him with. I don't even know if the pills did anything. That was one of the things I was kind of confused about. I thought at first like, oh, are they making him weaker or whatever, or is it like keeping him sick? Because I remember about that from like a movie or these videos. I don't remember if it was like a real life thing or not, where there was like this girl that was sick and her mom was having her on these pills, and the pills were making her worse, and she ended up catching it on video. I think that might have been like a movie plot. I don't completely remember. It's like a very specific thing that I'm thinking of. Anyway, I thought the pills were maybe doing that to like keep him there longer. Because Annie knows that like once his legs get better, he's gonna try and leave. But they end up getting in this fight at the end that gets pretty physical, where he like slams his typewriter into her head and literally like pokes out her eye. Not that her eyeballs pop out of her head or anything crazy, but like he like jams his fingers in her eyes, and then her eye, she opens them when he's done, and her eyes are like bleeding a bit, and it's like, whoa. And then they're sort of trying to fight each other on the ground, and I think it's also just the main character Paul's helplessness that kind of makes it scary too, because like his legs don't really work or anything. Eventually he ends up in a wheelchair, but then when he's like wandering around the house and stuff, he has to like, for some of the rooms like the kitchen, get out of the wheelchair and like has to crawl around on the floor. Like one of the first times it happens, when he first tries to leave his room, he's on the ground and the camera's kind of following his perspective a bit, and there's this part where he goes up to the door and he's trying to reach up to the handle to open it, and it just looks so much bigger than it actually is, because it's like his perspective from the floor. You just really feel this guy's helplessness for like most of the movie. Like he's trying to stay smart and do everything he can to get an advantage. He like stops taking pills. He ends up having his book set on fire at one point. Yeah, he's like constantly trying to scheme to get out of there. It's kind of interesting to follow. And sometimes I wasn't even following with his logic occasionally, where I'm like, okay, he's doing this thing, what's that gonna do? And then it ends up paying off like a while later into the movie. or what else? I'm trying to think of like specific scenes that stuck out to me. There's one where it's a scene where it's raining and Annie is in Paul's room and looks just completely depressed, and she says how she originally was in love with him because of his brain, like because of the characters he wrote and stuff, and then says that she eventually fell in love with all of him, and that she knows that he doesn't love her, like don't try to lie to me about it or whatever. And she's like, oh, you wouldn't fall in love with me. Like, even though she's got some issues and she does try to kill him and stuff, I did kind of, up to like a certain point in the movie where I was kind of getting confused with things, I did feel bad for her and stuff. Like, originally, like when he gets into his accident, she brings him in like before she finds out he's planning to kill, or he's killed off his main character. Like, she hasn't read his script yet. She does seem like she genuinely cares about him, and not in like a creepy way yet, of like trying to nurse him back to health and stuff. And I thought it was eventually going to be revealed of like, I mean, you do see him when he gets in the crash that maybe she caused the crash somehow, because she mentions even before that of like, yeah, I've been following you around and whatever, and she like knows all his habits. At one point she's asked by a police officer searching her house later on in the movie of like, oh, hey, what do you know about this like Paul Sheldon guy? And she starts listing off about like when he was born, his parents, as if she's like reading off a Wikipedia article. But yeah, sometimes I did feel kind of bad for her. I thought her house was kind of interesting, that because this house is really like the main, like really kind of the only setting you see a lot of the time. We start kind of memorizing where things are. It's sort of like kitschy, if that's the right word. Like, it has this like kind of old looking wallpaper and all these little paintings up. It has some kind of cute decorations. It just gives the vibe of like grandma's house a little bit, but it is like a farmhouse, so that probably fits with it. I kept forgetting that she like owns a farm because it's constantly snowing outside. It's never not snowing outside. I mean, it does take place in winter. The main character gets in an accident because there's like a blizzard. But she has like this pig that shows up sometimes. I thought the pig was going to be plot important, but it wasn't actually important at all. Sort of. It's just kind of there. I mean, the end of the movie, the thing he kills her with is a little iron statue thing of a pig, so I guess that kind of ties it together. But the pig itself, the actual animal, doesn't really do anything. I was almost a little disappointed. I thought it was gonna do something, but like, cool, I guess she has a pig. It reminded me that they're on a farm. But the house is kind of interesting. There's this little part of one of the rooms that has this little ceramic collection that ends up being plot important, where the character almost knocks down the penguin that's on the front of it, and then he puts it back, and that's the thing that signals to Annie like way later in the movie of like, hey, I know you've been sneaking out or whatever. The penguin wasn't facing the right way. Like, as soon as that happened, I was like, yeah, this is gonna relate. This is gonna be the thing that gets him caught somehow. But it was a cute little ceramic collection. I kind of wish we could have seen more of it. We just see like a close-up of the penguin. I thought it was adorable. I kind of want a ceramic penguin now. I love penguins. I almost was going to take a screenshot of it and be like, where can I find this thing? But like, everything in the house has this kind of vintage look to the point, and it takes place in a small town too, to the point where I thought, like, when does this movie take place? I'm assuming it's when the movie was made, and then to the point where I was like, at first, why is he typing on a typewriter? Why isn't he typing on a computer? And I remembered, oh yeah, he's in this like small town or whatever, and also the movie takes place in 1990, so I don't know why the hell I forgot about that. I'm like, oh yeah, I can't write in a computer if there's no computer. Anyway, that's, I think, pretty much my thoughts. Sorry, I'm like really tired, so it's like the movie is clear in my head. I literally just finished it like a while ago, but I'm kind of a hard time having my thoughts together at the moment. But I think this is good. I covered the scenes I wanted to cover. That was kind of it. I just mostly wanted to say that it was really good. it was scary. I hope that Kathy Bates got an award for her performance as Annie, because she kind of scares me now. Or as this character. I think the only other thing I'd really seen her in, I think was also from the 90s, was Annie. I know there's like multiple different versions. Like the one that I grew up with that I had on DVD as a kid was the one from the 90s where she was Mrs. Hannigan. So that's kind of what I'm used to her from. But in that one, she's not like scary. She's just kind of mean. But in this, no, she's scary. I also really like this poster too. I wanted to try to find one that was like horizontal instead of vertical, because this is the image that pops up on HBO as well, where it's just this like old looking picture of this house, and then the title. I find the title kind of interesting too. Like it's named after like I originally thought like, oh, it's called Misery because it's like a horror movie or whatever. But no, it's named after the main character of the in-universe book. And I was surprised that it's romance novels, because you're naming your character after an adjective for feeling sad, for being miserable, and also that the main character, Paul, is also miserable. Oh no, I'm sorry. There is one thing I was kind of confused about. Because let's see, the main character Annie, she talks about her husband. I thought it was going to be revealed that she like killed her husband or something. I don't know if it was implied, maybe not, maybe he just died and that's part of the reason she's so lonely. Like it does tie to her backstory of like she used to work as a nurse, like a nighttime nurse, and it was like very lonely. And she got into Paul's books, and that's when she became a fan and stuff. But there's this one part where Paul looks through the scrapbook, and he finds all these newspaper clippings that Annie has about working in the hospital. And some of the clippings are about her becoming like a really successful nurse or whatever. But then there's all these other clippings of like people dying in the hospital until... it's this stuff about like babies dying in the hospital, and they think it's something related to her in these clippings, and she ends up having to like testify for it or whatever. I don't remember if it says she ends up going to jail. I'm assuming not. And the quote that she uses, and that's what like clues the police officer to find her house and like try to investigate more, is a quote from the Misery books. But and it's a good thing he had read them too, because it could have just taken in as like a religious thing as well. There's like a religious themes in this movie as well. I forgot about that. Like Annie's always wearing this cross, and she gets upset about cursing, and there's some like other stuff I can't remember as well. But yeah, I wasn't sure if it was... I thought it was going to be revealed that maybe she was lying about being a nurse, but she does know about like the medicines and stuff, and she has like a... what is it? The IV machine or whatever in her house. That's probably enough to like, you know, prove that she's like an actual nurse, and she'd work in the hospital and everything. But I wasn't sure if the clippings were implying like... that she was a bad nurse and that's why these people were dying, or was she like... especially like I could understand with people at first. I thought from the clippings, like, because it would be like a clipping of someone dying and then of her rising up in the ranks of being a nurse. I thought it was maybe she was like killing people that were getting in her way, but then it was like newspaper clippings that were about like infants dying in the hospital, and I'm like, okay, what does she have against them? Is she like killing these people on purpose, or is she just like a really bad nurse and they're dying? I'm assuming she's killing them, but I just couldn't figure out why. I'm probably gonna Google that after this, or if I remember something, because that was supposed to be like a very important thing, and that's when the main character starts getting a bit more scared of her. I don't know, maybe it's something obvious and my brain's just not functioning enough for this right now. But I almost forgot about that, but that was a important part of the movie. Anyway, I'm done here. I'm going sleepies. But this was good. I wanted to talk about I was lucky I left my computer on. I had hopes for this movie, and that's part of the reason I left the PC on, is like, okay, I'm probably gonna want to talk about something in this movie, and I was right. It was mostly the torture method with the hammer that scared the hell out of me. But I just thought it was interesting how, you know, it's just these two characters, but it scared me more than like other horror movies I'd been watching. Like, there isn't really like jump scares or anything with this. It's not like super gory or anything. It's just these two people and this one lady who's a stalker, and their sort of cat and mouse game of trying to escape and stuff. But it still felt kind of scary. It's all because of her, really. She kind of makes the movie Annie, because Paul as a character is just kind of like whatever. The policeman isn't really that important. It was also weird seeing like when I got to the credits, the cast list is so short, because there's like barely any people in this movie, and maybe like 3 or 4 main characters, unless you count like the in-universe character Misery as an important character, or as like a character. I think she qualifies in a sense of that's what the narrative's about. It's about her and keeping her alive and stuff. And it's like funny to me. I mean, I don't know how people usually treat authors, I'm assuming badly, of Annie originally gets upset about Misery being killed and has Paul burn his own novel, like the pages of it, and then the plot is about him writing a new one where she gets to survive. I feel like that's probably something that's happened in real life, where authors get threatened for like characters dying. So I didn't even really see it as like psychotic or anything. I just thought like, yeah, someone probably has tried something like this. I'm not sure if it would be to the point of like, I mean, she didn't kidnap him. She did save him from the car wreck. He would have probably died. But then just keeping him prisoner in her house and stuff. I don't know. I don't know if I'll watch more like Stephen King adaptation movies and stuff. Like, this one had the same vibe as The Shining, and I kind of liked it in that aspect. I'd be down for more stuff like this, because I know there's other ones. Like, I've watched both versions of it. I mean, it doesn't have a similar vibe, but it's like different. I know there's the Pet Cemetery one. I'm not really interested. But it's just the themes of like this and The Shining, of like, also it's interesting that both the main characters in those are writers, and about them having to write a book and having writer's block, except Paul, you know, doesn't go insane. But like, these themes are like this kind of, I almost want to say slow burn. I know it's usually a word used for like romance stuff, of just people starting out fine and then eventually cracking. Not that Annie goes insane. She doesn't. She just kind of gets a bit more unhinged, or more of like revealing her true colors, and then ending up in this kind of messiness of having to escape, and this person is like trying to kill you. I'm good for more stuff like that. But yeah, good movie. Was kind of scary. I'm gonna be thinking about that scene with the hammer. That's the thing in this movie that's gonna keep me up, but also the Kathy Bates staring into the camera and all these kind of scenes was just, it's just like the way it was shot was just kind of creepy. Curious if you guys have seen this as well. I hadn't really heard of this movie other than like seeing some of the hearing about it, of like stuff related to her, or like whenever I'd see like shots of this movie and like videos or whatever, it would always be like the shots of like her standing over Paul's bed and talking to him and whatever, and that's what made me originally interested in the first place. All right, okay, now I'm gonna go to bed. See you guys next time. Bye bye.